Hello everybody, I'm going to talk about male coifs. It might actually be another video of me moaning about the film and gaming industry and how they get their stuff so inaccurate. But I'm going to talk through a little bit about what they were historically, and then I'll move on to critique some movie industry stuff. So let's go to my Photoshop, and we have here some effigies and statues, examples of what male coifs tend to look like. Some of the main motifs and main aspects of what a male coif consists of. So male is iron links linked together and to form a usually 1x4 pattern, and it was used mainly, also male itself has been used since the Iron Age, early Iron Age, probably late Bronze Age, but I shall be talking about mainly 13th century examples. So let's look at see what we have here. We've got the Gilbert Marshall, 4th Earl of Pembroke, down here at the bottom here. Now I'll just zoom in. He's a bit of a funny looking bloke, but he's from about the mid 13th century, 1241. So this is his whole effigy, and he tends to be here mostly covered in mail. He's got a male hauberk, and he's got male mittens and the male coif, which I'll be talking about here. Now he's got a bit of a weird head, but if I've got a new layer here. Alright, red pen. So, you know, the male area is around the face. Well, it's around the entire head, but you can see here that it covers pretty much the entirety of the head, bar the face. Now note that there's a flap coming up here that protects the chin, and then there's, if we do zoom in a little closer, if I get rid of all this red stuff here, so in between the iron links is a cord, probably made of leather, that's going around this flap, and it's tied here on the side of the head. Now also note that there is leather cord or a cord of some form going around the face. I'm not particularly sure what this would be for, maybe to further secure the kind of facial area and where the male covers, and to keep it in place maybe. So luckily this is a very detailed effigy. Also there's this band that goes across the head. I should imagine this is to keep the male in place. If you're moving your head around a lot, jerking around, and you've got a male coif, the male will move on the head, I should imagine, and this is to stop that from jigging about too much. So the shape of his head's a little odd. Hang on a minute. I'll just get rid of that. Okay. So the shape of the head's a little odd. It does sloop in, if slooping is a word. However, the bulge here, I should imagine, is from a gambeson material that pads the head underneath. This helps blunt force trauma against sword or any other weapon impact. Also, he could have like a helmet, usually shaped like this. I'm not particularly sure what the name of the helmet is called, but that could help pad it. And there was all kinds of shapes of helmets in the 13th century. You know, you could have a conical helmet design. you know, or you could have a basic round helmet with a face mask. This was sometimes done. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. This is also mid 13th century, St. Maurice of Magdeburg, sorry, cathedral in Germany. So it's very similar. There is also a red band. There is a band that goes across the head here. So another repeated motif that's used on male coifs. However, he doesn't have a chin extra flap thing that goes over the male coif to protect the throat and chin. However, there is male covering it. And do note that it does go up to the bottom lip and goes in and out. So it's more or less tailored towards the head. You can see it sloping in on the back of the head there, and sloping in on the chin. And note that the band, I should imagine, is actually quite tight on the head if it's going in so far and creating a dent all the way around the head. You can see it here as well. This is also a good example of a coat of plates, which is his chest protection here. Yeah, good example of coat of plates, but we're not talking about that today. So yeah, I'll move on to the next one. So what's this guy here? William Marshall, 1st Earl of Pembroke, and you can find this in London, in Temple Church. Again, another good example of kind of tailored mail. You can see it going in on the chin here, quite, you know, defiant. Is the word defiant? Definite. Anyway, it goes in quite far, and it goes around the inner, under the chin and across the neck. This is something that I see quite a lot on these effigies. I looked at several more, but I thought I'd just give you 3 examples, otherwise I'll overwhelm you. Also notice the grade of the male is going around the face, and in this case the Gilbert Marshall, 4th Earl of Pembroke, almost goes a spiral around the head. And in this case, spiral around the head. However, the grade goes down underneath the band. I'm not sure how this is done. Maybe the cap of the head is done, and then the iron links are then the grade is changed for sloping down. And then you can see here it triangulates here under the chin, which is quite interesting to see. Yes, so here's a few effigies. I looked at these on the effigy database, so links in the description for if you want to find these. There's a really good website for that, and the manuscript stuff that I'm about to show you. So more manuscript stuff. So these are kind of either frescoes or manuscripts. Bottom 2 are from the Morgul Bible, and the other 2 are frescoes. Let's go up to the top left. So this is artwork that would have been created around the sort of date. Now notice on this one, if I create a layer so I can edit using the red pen, the band goes beneath the brow of the cap. I don't know what this is, how this is done, but also note that the grade of the male goes across and then under the chin in a different grade, and on top of the cap it goes around in a spiral. I may be analysing this a little too much. I'm not sure, because this band, this golden band that goes around the head, I should imagine it has the same purpose of keeping the male in its place, so it's not jigging about if you're jerking your head around quite a lot, because male is actually quite heavy. But I have no idea how this would be secured if it's not going around the entire head. Anyway, next one. So we don't have any bands going across the head. However, you see the male, you don't see any of the neck. The neck is completely covered, and it seems quite tailored towards the shape of the head. Notice that it does bulge a little bit on top, but again, this would have been for padding. You would have worn a padded cap underneath this. Not too thick, but enough to, because if it's too thick it becomes over encumbersome. However, you do need some padding underneath, otherwise the male becomes completely void and won't protect you. Alright, so the next one. Oh yeah, note that these pauldron spolders here may have been made out of leather, so it's a nice example of leather armour made historically. Okay, moving on. This is from the Morgan Bible. Apologies that this is quite a pixelated image. However, note that this guy here has a Chevalier or a secret helmet, and I should imagine the male would have been worn over the top of this secret helm, which is quite interesting. So he would have had a very well protected head, with the male going over the secret helm, and the secret helm being solid plate of steel to protect the head, and I should imagine this would have had a webbing system underneath this Chevalier. So yeah, good example of the shape of not Aventails, male coifs. Really restrictive on the face, only showing the main parts of the face, so just so that you have a good vision. Again, the grade of the male is quite different in several different cases. We have a cheek flap piece here. The grade of the male goes across, and in this case it goes around. So something to note there. Let's move on to the next one. This one's a bit of a better quality image. I found it quite interesting in here. I might be overanalyzing again, but there is this tuck that goes underneath, and it's in both of these, all three of these guys here. That might just be an artistic interpretation of the male. Also to note that, again, quite rounded heads, maybe for the padded coif underneath, such as this one here, on this guy there. It's quite evident that in all these male coifs that I've seen in depictions historically, that the face is quite restricted. However, there's enough opening for you to see and to breathe, and the rest of the head is well covered. Interesting that it's in a period where helmets were used. However, there is quite a lot of depictions of just male on the head. So let's look at some first-hand examples. These are the Visby finds, which was a battle in Gotland, which is an island of Sweden, and this is about 1361. So this is about 100 years later or so. This is in the 14th century, so this is when mail is used as a secondary defence instead of a first defence. The male coifs maybe would have been 100 years old. Maybe they would have been quite dated. These are the defenders of Gotland, or Visby on the island. The Danish invaders would have had up to date. Probably they would have had plate defence. So this is in a period where plate armour tends to be a little more common, especially for the knightly class. So the holes in here you can see compared to the actual skull, the hole is quite small, just allowing enough for your face to poke through. Note that here, I know that the jaw would be there, but note the fact that the male does go over the jaw and would have indeed gone around the chin. However, these two bottom examples is quite hard to tell. The male has moved around the face, and I should imagine these guys would have had a quite gruesome death. Not very nice at all. So yes, that's the historic examples. So I'm going to move on to film industry examples, and these are the ones that I think... Oh no, sorry. These are the reenactment examples. I should have labelled that on my folder. Anyway, so I've got some nice examples here of people that have done good reconstructions of what the male would have looked like, and these are photographs of them. I couldn't find a source for these guys, the pictures. I did look up on this on Pinterest, so you could search up 13th century knight or men-at-arms, and I'm sure these images would pop up. So yeah, these guys have done a pretty good job of reconstructing male coifs. You can see here a really well tailored, hang on, I'll just make the brush smaller, really well tailored male coif that's not too bulgy on the head, but you can still see that there would have been a padded coif underneath. This male coif is not attached to the hauberk, which is the whole chest piece here that goes around the main body. But yeah, that very evident cut that goes underneath the head. You know, if it dragged down, you're basically dragging unnecessary mail and weight, so you don't want to carry that kind of weight on the head, and plus it won't get in the way. You see in this case, I think that this is a cheek piece that goes around the face and then is tied up here, and that is what that covers the underneath the chin. Do note that it's just enough room for the face to poke through, and I think this guy on the right here, both the middle guy and the right guy are the same people. But yeah, do note that I think he might be wearing, it's possible, a chevalier underneath that male coif. It's possible, but I'm not certain on that. You can see that nice rounded shape that we saw in the manuscripts, that cut underneath the chin and an exposed area allow vision and you to command voices. So yeah. Oop, didn't mean to do that. So that's pretty good examples of what they may have looked like in the day. Also note the nice colourful, vibrant clothing that they wear. So yes. Moving on to, okay, here we go, bad replicas. I've got one myself that I use for reference, but I'm able to change this and make it look a little more realistic in my artwork that I produce. So yes, note here a giant. Let's start from the left-hand side. The male itself is obviously aluminium. That bright coloration. It's butted, and historically it would have been riveted, and there is a giant gap underneath the chin exposing the neck. Also note that none of these examples have a padded coif underneath, just to show that it would have had a padded coif. I blurred this guy because I don't really want to show his face. And all this sagging and rippling underneath here, obviously not tailored towards a head shape, just a hood shape. So moving on to the middle one, again aluminium. It should be iron, and in this case it is riveted. There is not so much of a gap, however there is quite a large hole there that can be used as a target. No tailoring towards the head of the shape of the head, so there's not that scooping. No padded coif, and I can see that there is a hole there where some iron links have either come off or something like that. Moving on to the next coif, using iron links, which is nice, and riveted, which is nice. However, again, giant gap here. All this weight would have been dragged by the top of the head. There is a slight scoop in, but again, it's not really tailored right in towards the shape of the head, and it should come up around here, and the male should really go around the face instead of around the head. So these are some bad replicas, and those reenactments I showed beforehand are good examples of male coifs. So we've got some passable movie examples here. So top left is from the movie Arn, and the bottom two are from Arn, the series. So I'm going to zoom in here. It might get a little pixelated, but they have made a fairly decent job here. So again, when I was looking at the effigies of the Pembroke guy, there was cord going through the male, and you can see that they've actually done that here, which is quite nice to see, a nice little touch. I'm not too sure whether they are actually wearing a padded coif underneath. I'm accidentally saving it, never mind. They've got the cheek flap piece here that goes around the face, and they are obviously wearing nice iron links riveted. These are flat links instead of the round links, which are more historical. I'll explain that in another video. And the edge of the male is secured with a leather liner, which is quite nice to see. Again, I think this might be historical. Get my marquee tool out. However, bad where it's not really tailored towards the head. There are sagging here. It's male that looks like it's just off the shelf. That's not what you want to see. And again, it tends to bend a lot there. I would say here it's a bad example, but it's good for movie industry, I reckon. This one is from Kingdom of Heaven, that's it. Note the conical nasal helm is actually tailored towards the nose. It's nicely shaped there, covering the nose, not the entire face. There are examples where it does go down towards the mouth, but it's nice to see a nice historical example where the nasal part of the conical helm is just going over the nose itself. We've got that typical cheek flap piece that we saw in the effigy, nice to see there, and I can't really tell, I think these are round links, which is nice to see, and they're made of iron, and we've got some leather cording that's securing it all in place, so that's actually a quite nice example. However, the movie itself is a bit cheesy, and very long and boring, so unfortunately the film itself wasn't the best. However, there's a nice example here of a male coif if you ever want to see it. So here we have another example of the Arn movie. He's wearing what seems to be maybe a secret helm, but it's more of a round helmet or a cap, iron cap. You can see that here he's got that securing in place. However, bad that he hasn't secured it properly. I would expect a knight to secure his chin strap thingamadoo properly, but he hasn't there. And interesting that halfway through the battle he takes his helmet off and he puts his hood back just to expose his head so he can get killed. I don't think he does get killed, but it's a bit of a silly choice to take your helmet off during the midst of a battle. Right, so bad examples of movie industry male coifs. Right, I think this is called Nightfall. This is a terrible example. They're all wearing, I think it may be aluminium or zinc plated. It doesn't look like iron links to me. Very bad. This is sagging over their head, going over and obstructing his vision. So that's a bad example there. It's more of a hood than a male coif. This one here, yeah, it's got leather liner going and securing the male. He looks very depressed. Maybe it's because he's sad that he's got such bad equipment on him. But the giant target there for his throat, and he's dragging all this weight here. It should be cut underneath the chin. I don't think these guys are wearing padded, like a padding underneath, like a padded coif or a padded cap. It's very evident here that this guy isn't wearing a padded cap, and again, doesn't seem to be very tailored towards the head. I think what they should have made all these coifs for the extras a lot smaller. This guy's not wearing anything on his head, so he's got a giant target which is right here. Quite easy to hit that. This guy here, again, massive hole there, and he'll be dragging all that weight underneath there. So bad examples. Keep on doing that, I shouldn't do that. Right, Lord of the Rings, one of my favourite movies here, and from one of my favourite scenes, the Rohirrim charge in Return of the King. This is a shot here, nice shot of a male coif. However, I can see that he's not actually wearing anything underneath that. This is a very small shot, so I can forgive the fact that he's not wearing anything underneath there as he's an extra. But I should imagine for such a high budgeted movie that they would put in a little more effort, especially for tailoring that coif and getting rid of that gap that's underneath his throat there. Shouldn't be sagging down like that. It should be round the face just enough and cutting just so the male's not getting in the way, and it's nicely it's basically close to the body as possible, so it's not actually getting in the way. Indiana Jones here, another beloved movie, and towards the end of Last Crusade we've got a very bad example of not using anything underneath the head, underneath the coif of male. It's quite high up on the brow and it's going underneath the chin. And in this case it's not attached to the hauberk. I don't know whether this Crusader is late 13th century or early 13th century. Early 13th century examples the coifs tend to be actually attached to the hauberk itself instead of unattached here. But as a fairly minor character in the story, I can forgive this. However, it would be nice if he actually padded out his coif and maybe some extra iron links just to cover up that face, just so it's like that. They wanted to get that beard out, I should imagine, make him look like he's definitely old, get that grey hair out, just so he looks aged, I guess. Right, last example here is Braveheart. Oh yeah, it's not my last example, I've got a really hilarious one in a minute. We can see a string going through the shape of the face here, I should imagine, to kind of close the gap so it's not going anywhere, and then you can see here that it's actually secured underneath the chin here and not actually sagging too much. However, it should be close to the face, should be going underneath the chin here, nicely tailored in. However, it's not, and he's not actually wearing anything underneath this male coif, making it completely useless and probably a little more dangerous. And I should imagine it's very uncomfortable having a crown and iron links going into your head. You're probably thinking, oh my god, my head, it hurts so much. But anyway, and I'll show you the worst example here. It's quite funny to see. I do love Game of Thrones, but this is just ridiculous. Now, why does he even have it on his head? I guess they're trying to communicate that these guys are mostly unequipped, but my god, it's not even on his face. It's just sagging or just hanging on the back of his head, just like that. When he goes on that horse and starts going into canter or into trot, that's just going to fall off his head, and that would be completely useless. So there was no point in having that on his head in the first place, I reckon. You know, if they were going to do it, get him a padded coif, strap it so it's going around the face and nice in and tight, so it's going around the face there. That would look so much better. You know, it would give a nice look of nice tailored mail. However, I'm guessing they want to communicate that these guys on the side of Jon Snow are unequipped or badly equipped. Another example of hanging male coif here. So I don't know why this has really been a thing, all these gaps on the throat and less tailored mail towards the head. I should imagine it's to do with budgeting your shoes and stuff like that, but I hope you enjoyed going through what male coifs were historically, and then moving on to how it's been mutated almost, or changed to a less effective piece of armour or equipment in the movie industry, and then communicating it to the rest of the world. So yeah, I'm going to finish the video now. I should imagine I've been talking for quite some time, so we'll finish it there. Have a good day.